everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to talk about Snow White and the box office figures for its opening weekend of release and what the performance means for movies going forward in 2025, in particular live action adaptations of the classic IPs and characters. So as we all know, this was the big budget adaptation of the classic 1937 Disney animated movie starring Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, and this opening weekend will cover the period from Friday the 21st to Sunday the 24th of March 2025. So we'll get straight into it then with the figures, and within US cinemas the film did debut to number one position with a total of around $43 million. Internationally, the movie replicated its US performance to end up with a global tally of around $87 to $89 million worldwide. So then, what do we make of all of these numbers? Well, in short, it's not very good. As with all of these remakes, the budget is absolutely huge at around an estimated $270 million, and that's before marketing. So any project with that type of outlay combining with this opening performance is going to be a disappointment for any studio, let alone perhaps the biggest one of them all within Disney. So when we go into the reasons for this underperformance, and if you are constantly following movie and media entertainment, especially online, then you won't be surprised by this opening weekend. But for people who don't always keep up in touch with the news, this movie has basically been under scrutiny ever since it was announced way back in 2022 within a D23 presentation staged in Brazil. It was initially due for release back in 2024, but then got postponed due to the writers' strikes. And sadly, the film has been fighting a never-ending negative antagonism, albeit most of it online, ever since. Firstly, any Disney projects nowadays will always have a built-in negative attitude due to the handling of other iconic properties, really most notably with both Star Wars and Marvel. Anytime we see a reboot, remake, live-action adaptation, there are automatic fears of classic characters being race-swapped or gender-bent and other radical changes made which will be at odds with what the characters originally stood for. And to be fair, these concerns have been validated and justified, certainly within the last 5 to 10 years. We also look at Snow White itself, and yes, whilst the 1937 version and story is certainly timeless and renowned everywhere, I'm not really sure about how much demand there really was for a live action interpretation, and you could say that about any of them to be honest, but the Snow White character doesn't really have the same resonance as recent iterations such as The Lion King, The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, or indeed Aladdin. We then talk about the controversial instance of the movie itself, and when those first initial images of the dwarf characters were released, actor Peter Dinklage, who we all know as Tyrion from Game of Thrones, spoke of his disapproval at dwarfish actors playing these type of characters, stating that it was a backward step, and he himself received backlash after being accused of costing dwarfish actors high profile roles. We do then unfortunately have to talk about Rachel Zegler, the lead actress, and whilst I have made a previous video asking as to whether the backlash was warranted, there's no doubt about it that she has been the most contentious element of the entire movie pre-release. Now this all started with her casting itself, with many deeming her to be too brown skinned for the character, who as per the original story and name was being seen as having skin as white as snow. We then had the notorious interview at the D23 Expo back in 2022 where she stated that the old story was dated, that the original love story of the prince pursuing Snow White was weird, and that they were trying to have a different approach with this newer version. Now, this interview was literally a neutron bomb of triggering negative online reaction, and Zegler suddenly became the biggest lead actress of online hatred or antagonism since Brie Larson from the Captain Marvel movie. And as with Brie Larson, we've had years, it seems now, of negative coverage and perception around Zegler, with endless YouTube videos and streams and social media posts all seemingly against her. Now, Zegler didn't help matters, and she compounded issues even further when speaking out against the re-election of Donald Trump for the US presidency back in 2024, stating that she hoped that supporters of Trump would never find peace. And this was again another ill-advised error of misjudgment that once more incited further hatred towards her, especially within US audiences. And despite her apology shortly afterwards, it was seemingly too late as the damage was already done. Now, as the movie started opening within theatres, initial reviews were stating that it was actually better than originally feared. But once more and more critics saw the film, we had much more negative consensuses that started to surface, which once more really harmed the buzz for the film itself. Now, whilst I haven't seen the film myself, when looking at the general reviews, it's deemed to be a lifeless, soulless adaptation with lackluster songs. Yet ironically, Rachel Zegler has drawn a lot of praise, especially for her vocals, whilst it's been her co-actress Gal Gadot, who plays the evil queen, who has drawn far more heavier criticism for her own performance. So when all is said and done then, how well or not well will Snow White overall perform? Well, when comparing to recent Disney live action remakes, and we also have to bring in Captain America Brave New World, as that is under the studio as well. Now that film limped to just over $400 million worldwide, and I'd say that Snow White overall would be lucky to get to that same total. Now many have compared this to the likes of Mufasa, the Lion King, which was the prequel to that original story, and that also had a very slow start in its box office opening, but it eventually went on to draw over $700 million worldwide. Now I really can't see Snow White getting anywhere near that figure. It's going to have to rely so much on the international markets to save any face. And we'll probably likely see a 65 to 70% drop for its second weekend within the US market. Now to be fair, Snow White wasn't the only failure within the cinemas this weekend. Robert De Niro's gangster epic, Alto Knights, only managed around a $3 million gross. And it was really a movie that didn't really have anything to sell, aside from the fact that Robert De Niro was playing dual roles, and many audiences were confused as to exactly why this was the case. Not a lot can be said about the release of Magazine Dreams, the bodybuilding drama starring Jonathan Majors, which was majorly delayed, obviously following the controversy surrounding his conviction for involuntary manslaughter. And to be honest, the buzz and release of this film was so small, it didn't really matter that it had such a low opening, especially when it really has a low budget in comparison. So whilst Snow White wasn't the only failure this weekend, we do of course have to focus on it as it was indeed the biggest failure. Again, as with all of these films we draw, it seems never ending to the overall costs in terms of the marketing and promotion. It seems the yardstick as to whether a film is successful or not. But I think the overall picture raises the question once more of, do these live action adaptations really work? Are audiences of the classic animated versions really asking for these live action versions to be made? Now for the larger part, I would say no. I think it seems that the audiences are indeed satisfied with what they had before, many deeming that you can't really improve on the classic versions, and I would tend to agree with that. But as usual with the studios and the state that they're in, they're too afraid, as we all know, to try anything new or different. I think that's also compounded with the fact that the recent new releases, as of what I've mentioned before, alongside the likes of Novocaine and also Mickey 17, failing to perform at the box office, it seems both studios and audiences are less willing than ever to give new movies with original scripts and ideas a shot at being a success. But one does wonder how many more failures will it take, whether it be Snow White or Captain America Brave New World. How long will it take before studios finally realise that these big budget movies are costing too much and that they really have to scale these costs down and really work on the original concepts at hand? Before they even cast a single actor or write a single page of a script, they need to face the question, are audiences really asking for these movies to be made? Yes, they are known IPs with an established fan base, but are you really in connection with what that fan base wants? And do you have an understanding with what made the franchises so special in the first place? What's the point in spending 200 million plus on the budget of these films if you're going to make versions that are unrecognisable to what the original fans have been appealed to for so many years? This sort of initiative will always put audiences off and again damage the brand and indeed the impression of these type of movies overall. So much food for thought for Disney, and as we look at 2025, it's already not looking to be a very good year in terms of movies at the box office. So there's my overall thoughts and feelings when looking back at the box office figures for Snow White. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have any other further movies, television series, or any other topics within the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, then also let me know in the comments, and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.